Glenn Parker, High Vibration Foundation. Thank you very much for joining me. Today I wanted to talk about the power of the mind and that you are the most powerful thing in the universe and in your universe because they are one and the same. You are an immortal being in a timeless reality who is projecting your consciousness into a crystallized physical form. And it is just you in your own universe, and you're creating shadows and people and places and things, energy representations of other sentient, individuated consciousness to come and play with. So, unleashing the power of the mind is effectively letting go of some of these things that might come up, and I'll give you some examples for Glenn. So, there's particular sets of circumstances, and they come up, and maybe they've been there for years or months or even just a couple weeks, but they have a vibration to them, and it could be a lack of this, or perceiving a lack of abundance, because you basically have an abundance of lack, basically. So, as a for instance, and every time you go to do something and maybe there's not enough to accomplish that task, for instance, you revibrate that. So it really is stepping back and just being okay with that, because you put it there, and you put it there as a challenge to be able to overcome, and overcoming it is being okay with it. So if you can be okay with it, you take all the energy away from it. So all the previous vibrations that have stacked up to then, and there's emotional trauma that go along with this, and emotional energy is huge. And it physically affects the body and the energetics around you and your ability to manifest. So it's when you have the ability to let these things go and recognize that, the power of your own soul and your own mind to go down a direction that you are consciously choosing, rather than being a plaything of circumstance and just having things come up and rattle your cage, so to speak, and rattle that vibration, and now you're magnetizing yourself to those particular parallel realities, because you are a consciousness that is slipstreaming through an infinite amount of parallel realities simultaneously. They all coexist. So it basically is magnetizing yourself to the parallel realities that you want. So The Secret and Law of Attraction and Down the Rabbit Hole talks about superposition and down and collapse of the waveform and all these types of ideas. And we're starting to disassemble things to the point where we're going, that's weird. It's not it's not anything until somebody observes it. That means that it's just potential energy, and when somebody observes it, they even have experiments that show that you as an observer can statistically skew the outcome. Like, for instance, and I couldn't find this video that I saw in a documentary, but I'll find it, let me tell you. And it's a cascade of these like little random metal balls coming down, and they're let out in a random order, and they shimmy and shake, kind of like a pachinko machine, if you know what that is. It's a Chinese gambling game in Japan, and as they come down, they randomly go and boom. So what they did is they had grab people randomly off the street, and then goes into college, and they say, hey, we're doing an experiment. Could you come and help us? Yeah, why not? We want you to consciously decide, left or right, to shift the balls more toward a left orientation or a right orientation. And there's another experiment where people would hit a key and it would burst off like a bit of ones and zeros with 256 ones and zeros. And they asked them, could you skew this to have more ones or more zeros? And the answer to the question of why is this relevant is the sum of these experiments, both the ones and the zeros, and the balls. The one with the balls coming down was in the 70s and 80s, if I'm not mistaken. So it was way back in the day, and I think it was conceived in the 60s. And there's a name for this experiment that escapes me, or else I'd find it. And if anybody knows the name of this experiment, please leave it in the description and the comment. Yay! So the aggregate word on both of these were yes. Consciousness literally skewed these experiments. If they were thinking more left than right, there were more balls left than right, statistically speaking, from ones that were just cascaded down normally in blind experiments. So there was a definite, noticeable statistical change that would be relevant in mathematics. So, that is huge, boys and girls. So basically, this idea that you are a consciousness manifest into human form, do whatever it is that you can do, any permission slip that you can find, any meditation, any what I would call an interrupt, and this is applicable to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. If you can find either tap your hand or do an EFT type of thing when you're finding that you're going down a path that doesn't serve you, or tap your forehead or say a word. Audibly is good when you're by yourself in other circumstances, unless you don't care. Say things audibly. Sometimes people get a little funny. I don't particularly care. I do it. But I'm unique in that exception, so I don't really care what people think. So anything you can do to shift your consciousness to what you want and spend more time using over your want, and then letting go of the how and the effectiveness, it's going to be the effectiveness of what it is that you want. I want XXX. And your conscious mind can't perceive how you're going to manifest that, because there's an infinite amount of parallel realities, and human brain isn't designed to perceive those. It's only designed to perceive what's happening right now. So with all that said, if you can find a way within your own consciousness to concentrate more on the things that you want and not measure where you are and not be so rigid as to how they will come, you will have more and more and more of the happy things that you want. And they will manifest in the best way possible for you, because you are putting them there. And it's effectively magnetizing yourself to the parallel reality that is commensurate with those particular things. And the people that would go along with those things, because this idea of an abundance of lack and reinstating those vibrations and doing those over and over again, eventually you magnetize yourself so heavily to those that you have a conscious shift on those all the time, and that's your go-to. Now, if you start going to, I want to go to Hawaii, or I want to go to Australia, or I want a new car, or I want a new house, or I want to take a trip around the world, any of these things are 100% valid, but you need to exercise those more in your mind as a consciousness to magnetize yourself to them. Glenn Parker, High Vibration Foundation, thank you very much for joining me. Coaching, life, business, and spiritual. Also retreats, boys and girls, just revamped all those bad boys. All of those are down in the description. Retreats and coaching and the foundation and tons of other cool things. Email address for point of contact, all that good stuff. And if you did find this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share.